Ciao, everyone, and welcome back to Experience Italy with Friends. I'm your host, Tanya, and I'm here with my co-host, producer, and husband, Davide.
Ciao a tutti e benvenuti.
Today's episode is for those considering a move to Italy, or those just interested or curious to hear about our journey to achieve La Dolce Vita. We'll talk about why we decided to move to Italy, the process we went through to evaluate the requirements and prepare for the move, and finally, report out on our first week here in Calabria. It's a lot to cover, but it's been a long and crazy journey, and we're excited to share it with you. Let's get started.
Andiamo!
Experience Italy with Friends is a travel and lifestyle podcast where we will explore our favorite destinations and hidden gems, share key travel tips and cultural insights, and provide real-time updates about our move to this remarkable country. Join me, Tanya Razzo, an Italian travel expert and founder of Amici Vacations, and my Italian husband and producer, Davide Razzo, on a journey that is sure to inspire you and prepare you to create immersive and authentic experiences of your own in the beautiful country of Italy. Hello again, everyone, and welcome to our fourth episode. We're excited to report that we arrived in Italy last week. This is our first recording from our new home country. Finally. Can you believe it, Davide?
Actually, no, because it doesn't really feel real yet. And we're sitting right here in the apartment below our parents and in our makeshift studio here. But I guess it is real, right?
It is, but I guess it feels like very similar to past visits. So I'm not sure when the reality will start to settle in. I do have to say that it's been nice to be here, staying with family, and we received a wonderful welcome barbecue with family and friends last week. So
yeah,
that was a great way to kick off our time here.
Right. So yeah, we arrived on Tuesday and we landed in Rome. And then my cousin was waiting for us to help us to bring our 10 pieces of luggage to the car rental. There was no way we could have done it alone. It was really nice to have him there to help us. And so we got our car and we drove down to Lamezia Terme, which is in Calabria. And I had to stop twice because I was really still jet lagged and I needed some cat naps in between, right, Anya?
Yes.
So, but it was nice. Then my dad organized a barbecue the day after we arrived. And it was nice to see all family again and friends. And it was beautiful. So.
Well, we're here and we're excited to record our first episode from Italy. And today's episode is going to be fully dedicated to our move. We've been discussing it a little and providing updates in the past episodes, but this journey has been about 4 years in the making. And we thought it would be good to spend a full episode about it to cover really the full story from start to finish. And we hope that it's interesting for those who are considering a move to Italy or a different foreign country, or those just interested and curious to hear about our journey and want to live vicariously through us.
Yeah.
It's much cheaper that way.
Yes, exactly.
And I have to say before we dive into the full story that the past few weeks have been crazy busy with wrapping up our lives in the U.S. and physically arriving in Italy with, as Davide mentioned, our 10 pieces of luggage. But as I said, our journey began years ago. So we'll start from the beginning and talk you through what it took to get to this point, from why we're doing the move to the research and preparation required and what it took to get here.
Yeah. And before we do that, I thought that, we discussed, maybe we can just tell a little bit about our move experience and then maybe say something about Calabria. But I think you started to write up the episode and said, no, this is going to be a whole episode and we need to do Calabria later. So there's a lot to cover. Let's go. Let's get started on it. So where do we start?
Well, let's begin the story with talking about why we decided to move to Italy and at this point in our lives. We talked about our love for Italy in episode 1. So I'm not going to go into all those details of why we love Italy. But I think the key is that we've always dreamed of retiring here. Yes. And, it's not a new idea by any means. And if I were to sum it up, it really is that we love Italy and a life of travel and adventure that it opens up for us. We are in search of a simpler life with more balance and a focus on experience versus things. and we are in search of the Dolce Vita.
La Dolce Vita. Since we're not retiring yet, but a lot of people have asked us, why now? So why don't you guys wait until you retire? So yeah, why didn't we wait?
Well, I've had to do a lot of reflecting on this. And I think the answer is a combination of 1, COVID, 2, a midlife revelation, and 3, becoming empty nesters. Let me start with, what I touched on in episode 1, that the idea of moving first came about like 7 months into COVID. So this was October of 2020. I was feeling really burned out working long hours from home all these months. I was feeling trapped and isolated in our house in the suburbs.
Just to clarify, I didn't lock you in the house, right?
You did not lock me in, but I felt locked in.
Okay.
Chained to my desk. But we needed an escape, and so we decided to get out and enjoy the fall colors with a drive to northern Minnesota. And on this drive, I was venting about life, and I was, made a flippant remark. God, I wish we could just chuck it all and live with your parents in Italy. And, I really thought you would just laugh and we would just move on with venting and whining. But you surprised me because what did you say?
I remember that vividly, driving, and you said, oh, I just want to go to Italy and you just live there, maybe, stay with your parents. And I said, what if we did? And you said, what?
I'm like, come on, like for real?
Why not? So what's holding us? So, and then,
well, it really stirred a lot of conversation. And so I won't bore everybody with all of the hour long or so of details, but it really got me thinking. And by the end of the round trip, I had the concept of Amici vacations developed in my head. And
yes.
I was ready to just jump on this and go. But still, more thinking. And I would say the next thing that happened was I had this midlife revelation.
You mean a midlife crisis?
No, you heard correctly. A midlife revelation. I don't think it was a crisis, but an expansion of wisdom coming from all of our years of experience. But, seriously, somewhat stemming from COVID. But I was becoming aware of many examples of lives, opportunities, and dreams cut short for various reasons. We all plan for the future, assuming it's going to be there, but I think COVID really reminded us that it's not guaranteed. And even outside of COVID, I was hearing lots of examples of perfectly healthy people getting serious illnesses or even unexpected deaths. And I also was starting to hear about more of, family and our friends as parents retiring, and not everyone was fully enjoying those retirements because of medical issues or fear of traveling or different reasons. And it got me thinking, well, what if we didn't make it to retirement, or we waited until retirement and then we weren't healthy enough to follow our dreams? So, that was a big part of it. But I was also having a lot of reflection and starting to dream about having a simpler life. And what I mean by that is I was getting tired of the grind of maintaining career and home, like really wondering, did we need all of this? Did we need more? And I can't speak for everyone, but I feel I grew up programmed to constantly strive to achieve more. We're supposed to climb the ladder, have the bigger house and cars, etc. And I started to wonder, when is it going to be enough? Would it ever be enough? And I was also starting to feel that the things I worked hard to acquire and that provided me joy in the beginning really started to feel like a burden. Instead of me owning them, they were owning me and adding stress versus joy to my life. So, yeah, I'm going to wrap that up with that was a midlife revelation.
Yeah.
Just starting to really understand what's important to us, and did these material things in our life provide as much happiness as they used to? Lastly, I would say our lives were really changing by becoming empty nesters, and we were entering a whole new phase of life, whether we were ready for it or not. And after 20 years of raising a family in the burbs, what did life look like now? And it felt like it got a lot emptier quite quickly. Our children went to college, and thankfully for them, they love their new homes, their new states, but they're very independent and busy, and, they would come home less and less. So, they're focused on building their lives as they should be. as we were in our 20s.
Yeah.
Heck, I moved to Switzerland.
Exactly. They just do what their life is good. They taking their path. So.
Yes, and we're very supportive of that. So while we could figure out how to develop a new chapter in Minnesota, do we really want to live through cold winters and be reminded of what was? Or maybe we should look for our own adventure and, started to dream the life of travel, that we had in Switzerland, remembering all the fun that we had, and said, well, maybe we should be doing that. But I guess all in all, our why can be summarized with a desire for adventure and to live the fullest while we were, young and healthy to do so. And you might hear this in my voice now, speaking of healthy, but I have a slight cold.
A slight cold. I have tools for that.
But have a slight cold and, want to do all these things while we're healthy. But, carpe diem.
Yeah.
And I just kind of want to wrap this up and, say that I'm sharing all of this with you all. One, just to provide some insights as to our why. But, maybe you can relate in some way, or maybe it provides motivation for you to follow your dreams now, whatever they might be.
Whatever dream they have, right?
Right.
So, exactly.
So, we had the idea. Then what?
Well, we took that idea and let it simmer a little bit. Then we looked to our family and friends. We were looking for some advice and support. So we were asking them, are we crazy? Or we were wondering what they thought about that. And did we have their support? I don't know. I mean, friends are there to be real to you. And I have to say that most they were.
They were very honest. I think they kept us in check. And, I think our kids, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they obviously were the first ones. We talked about this and, really wanted their solid and, frank response. And they surprised us.
Yeah.
They were really like, why not? You need something new. You need adventure. You've been working hard for 30 years. We've watched you burn out. I mean, they saw me in that office at my desk day after day. And I think both of them said, whatever you're doing, I don't want a job like that.
Yeah.
But they were really supportive and said, you've gotten us to where we need to be. Go do you. And I was really surprised by that. But really? And I mean, they were on obviously different ends of the spectrum or different levels of the spectrum. And our son was, further into college and was more independent. And he was immediately, all for it. Just last night we were FaceTiming and he was saying that he's got a much cooler place than Minnesota to visit us during breaks. And, it doesn't faze him at all. Our daughter was on board mentally right away, but not quite ready. So we chose to do extended trips for a couple of years and, waited
to see how it feels.
A little bit for her to feel more comfortable. But neither of them are really fazed at the thought of us being across the pond. What's the big deal? It's just a flight. They've been doing it their whole lives. And I think that's important for everyone to understand is that since they were babies, they have been making the flight to Switzerland or to Italy. So that doesn't concern them so much. And now that we have FaceTime and we have other tools, I think it's, very similar to how we communicate when we're in Minnesota. But, even better is our daughter is going to be studying abroad in Florence next semester. So she is excited about being, having us nearby.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and our parents.
Your parents. I think they're sad. But when I left Switzerland, my parents were sad. But now they are happy that we're here, right? So, and it's like you said, health is everything. And that both set of parents are healthy. So we want to enjoy this. I rather enjoy it when they're still around and capable of doing things with us, because that can change. That can change quickly. Yeah, so we don't want that.
No, and I just want to add too that I think both of them are excited to have some adventure brought to their lives. I mean, mine are coming for a month already this winter.
Yeah.
I mean, when would they have done that? Never. And your parents are here in southern Italy, and already we've had them visit us up in Tuscany last fall, and they're going to be coming up for Christmas. And
as well, yeah.
I think it's really adding, some adventure to, all aspects of our family. And, I think I just kind of want to summarize here is that what is hitting us is, or it did hit us, was that maybe it was better to do this adventure and get settled while everyone is busy and healthy. And then we would be situated before any big changes happen in our lives, weddings, grandkids, caretaking. When we're settled here and we're not thinking about moving to a new country and establishing ourselves in a new country and growing our business, we're going to be ready to be there for them and not have any regrets about what that means for us and putting our dreams on hold. So, while they're doing good, we should take the leap.
Exactly. So,
and then, once we had everybody's support, I think we started to, downsize and strive for more simplicity in our lives. And we wanted to do this regardless if we made the big move to Italy or not. Mm-hmm. We sold the house. We moved to some walkable places to start feeling like what would life be like if we could just walk to restaurants and to stores.
Got rid of the car.
Yeah. And we started to purge. And then we purged again. And then we purged again. And we still have too much stuff.
We did. Not anymore. So, Tanya, while we were purging, we had to figure out what it would take to move to Italy, right? So we started to do some research. What did we do?
Well, we did various forms of research. I think first, and a key part of this was doing research on the ground here in Italy. I'd started my business and was traveling to Italy for 1 to 2 months at a time. And this was like a couple of years ago. And I was here to do, research about places and hospitality partners, but it also provided a lot of time to feel out the country, ask questions about life in Italy, and to start thinking about where in Italy we'd like to move. I mean, as I talked about before, it's a big country.
Yeah, so one of the resources we found was on Facebook, actually. We found Facebook groups, expats living in Italy. And so we just were lurking around and sometimes asking some questions and stuff like that. So
yeah, no, I thought they were super helpful and, loved that people shared their stories, posted questions, variety of answers. And, and also, which was key, is we learned that there are companies out there focused on helping people move to Italy. Never occurred to us. And we discovered Smart Move Italy. And we purchased an annual membership that provided webinars and access to online resources on all sorts of topics. I mean, I have to say it was a huge help for us. And, a little plug for them is that their annual boot camp is kicking off this week.
Yes.
And that was the start of our interaction with them, was their boot camp about what it would take to move to Italy. And there was a lot of different information, but I think for me, the biggest benefit of, all of these online resources and help was providing some structure for the questions we needed to learn the answers to. It wasn't just what does it take to move to Italy, is what are all the different areas we need to be concerned about and, be organized about. And it was immigration, how legally do we have
what does it take for you
to get here?
I can get in, but you.
Right. Like you were a citizen. So what did that mean for me as a spouse of a citizen? Did I need a visa or not? And, also the next question, renting or purchasing a property. We needed to think about what would that take, banking requirements, currency exchange, health insurance, taxes. I mean, everyone's favorite topic, taxes. But driver's licenses, the Codice Fiscale, which is their equivalent to basically social security number.
Tax ID.
Phones, utilities, how to ship our belongings, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, it's a really long list. And, the first thing you might want to think of when you're saying, oh, let's move to Italy is, well, just where? Where are we going to live? But it's way more involved. And you first need to deal with immigration. And I'm not going to go into all of the topics in detail. But
that's another 10 podcasts.
But I just want to highlight that a lot of research is required. And I also want to explain that learning the answers to these questions is overwhelming and often anxiety producing. And quite often we receive different answers for the same questions.
Yep.
And I was going to lose my mind at some point. And also that, for every helpful person you encounter, there is at least one unhelpful person, and even some that are damaging. And there have been many times that I put down my phone and turned it off a day after I was scrolling on Facebook and said, that's it. People are freaking me out. We can't go.
Yeah. And then I think that of the 3 or 4 Facebook groups I joined, I think I left 2 of them because there were people on there. Unfortunately, there's people that are rude. You asking a question, for example, how's the weather in Tuscany in October? I just want to know. And somebody would just ask back, do you have a visa? I mean, I have said nothing about, hey, I'm going to move there or whatever. And it was just unhelpful. So,
yep. No, I mean, so kind of like you need to take it with a grain of salt and filter through all these. And, after all of the research and, different classes that we took, we finally got to a point where we felt at least sufficiently informed.
Confident.
About each topic.
Confident. I think that was the big key for me.
Yes. And I have to say, being informed didn't mean that we always loved what we learned. Mm-hmm. Sometimes the truth was ugly. Taxes.
Yes.
And had to get over that. But I have to say what was key in all of this was finally getting to a healthy mindset. We would never be able to know everything. We had to be willing to take some calculated risks and be ready for some surprises. We had to have trust and faith in ourselves that we would figure it out as we would go. And I mean, life in the U.S. is not without surprises and change. And we've had to figure it out along the way every time life change or house changes or job changes. But being surrounded by others dealing with the same problems is key. Mm-hmm. And we knew we wouldn't be able to learn everything while sitting in the U.S. If anything, we were just going to get more and more overwhelmed. And we needed to be in Italy where you can talk to real people.
Yes.
And say, well, how did you do this? And that's really how you live life, right? I mean, no matter where you're at.
We just experienced it this week, right? In the first steps, getting residency and getting starting to get a tax ID for you and driver's licenses and all that. So
yeah, you have to ask questions. And I would also say I want to give you some, words of advice as we close out this topic of research and evaluation is, again, don't believe everything you read on the internet or, take it with a grain of salt. You'll slowly find at least some commonalities of truth. At a minimum, it helps you to better understand the questions you need to ask when you finally find the right person to answer it. Mm-hmm. And keep in mind that everyone's situation is unique. And the answer often is depends. Don't get discouraged by what worked or didn't work for someone else.
Yeah. What really worked for us was the help of professionals. So we hired a lot of professional services and we thought about it to do it ourselves. But I think what we really avoided were mistakes and things would take longer. And we were glad we invested money into this.
Yes, I would say that. I mean, you pay a little bit upfront, but you save maybe money on the back end, avoiding mistakes and having things take longer. And I think this is with every professional service, that you can do things yourself, install your own wood floors, for example, watching YouTube videos, but you probably make a few mistakes and go through how much of your lumber and have to redo it and throw it out and start over. So maybe not the best analogy, but
yeah, no, that's good enough.
Everything is, get help. And I think the people we involved from Smart Move Italy, as well as commercialistas, tax accountants that we reached out to personally, that they were the best help in this process.
So we did all the research and we became confident that we could do this. Now we just had to figure out where.
Exactly. And again, that's not an easy question to answer. Italy is a big, beautiful country. And I mentioned before that we did do some scoping out of places during our travels these past couple of years. And while we love so many regions of Italy, it became clear to us early on that our heart was in Tuscany or a neighboring region, such as Liguria or Umbria. It's where we first fell in love with the country. And given our dreams of further developing in the hospitality industry, it's a great place to provide value for our clients is to be located, in central Italy. But even narrowing it down to Tuscany wasn't enough. Now the next question, where in Tuscany?
Yeah.
We spent almost 2 weeks last fall driving east to west, north to south. Like, I don't know how many kilometers.
I think I put like 3,000 kilometers. I might be wrong, but that's about it. Yeah.
I don't doubt it. And we were able to eliminate quite a few places, but we still couldn't make a final decision. We just didn't want to get it wrong. I think we were hearing from people that it's difficult and time consuming to find a property, but even more time consuming and confusing and complex to sell a property. So we just felt this pressure that we didn't want to get it wrong. And I think what occurred to us, or I was learning through this process, is there's what you can read about a place on the internet. And you can get the facts, and you can get Wikipedia, and you can look at all the pretty pictures, and you can look at the things to go see as a tourist. Then you're there in person, and you can see what you can for yourself in a day or two. Mm-hmm. And then there was what you would learn from people. And that seems to be the most important, and that requires, enough time to be there. And I won't get into specifics, but there was like a place or two where we would mention to other people and say, hey, we're thinking about this place. And they're like, no,
don't go there.
And you're like, huh? Why?
Why?
And you're like, well, there's this rumor. And you're like, huh?
Oh, boy.
And they're like, well, we don't know if it's true or not, but the rumor is. And I'm like, well, okay, I don't want to be in a place where the first thing people say after I say I'm living here. Oh my gosh.
It's known for this and that. And that, okay.
So I'm like, we're going to need more time. Like, there's just no way that a day or two in any place is going to convince us that this is enough. So we decided to take a different route, and we've picked 3 places and decided to rent for a month at a time. And we're lucky that we can do this, again, because we do have an address here with your parents, and we officially have a place to be that maybe not everybody else has that opportunity. But Davide, why don't you explain to them the 3 places we're interested in?
So as we said that during our last trip last October, 3 of the towns came up that we were really interested. One was Pistoia, which is about west from Florence, about 30 minutes train ride. Yeah, yep. Northwest. Yeah, kind of slided a little bit going northwest. So we picked that because it was between Lucca and Florence, A. B, it had access to trains, which with other car here or any motorized vehicles, it's very hard to get around here. So we said we wanted to be nearby a train station so we can go places.
I liked that it was close to the coast, or easy access to the coast, and some of our favorite places along Liguria.
Mm-hmm. So Cinque Terre, you mean?
That and Portofino and Santa Margherita. Sure. I mean, the entire coast.
Yeah. So that was the first one. The second one was Montepulciano, which, if you love wine, it's an idyllic town with the walls. It's a town surrounded by walls still, and it's right at the edge of the Val d'Orcia, which if you see any pictures from Tuscany with the idyllic cypress trees
and hills
and all that, and papaveri, what do they call
poppies?
The poppies, yeah. So that's probably taken in the Val d'Orcia. So
we love it, and Montepulciano itself is a little bit touristy and not the most accessible by train. But we love the area, and there are lots of other little towns in that area that we are looking forward to explore. And want to know, is that really for us to be near our love of wine and wineries and the epitome of Tuscan countryside? Yeah. So we wanted to give that corner of the region a chance.
A chance, yeah. So, well, and then the third place we finally picked it's called Castiglion Fiorentino, which is about 30 minutes south of Arezzo. And it's also nearby Cortona, which was made famous by the movie Under the Tuscan Sun. And so we learned about this city by expats. So they were, you need to go and check out Castiglione Fiorentina. So we did. And oh my God, this really feels really good here. But then again, with the train, it was a little bit
Well, now we're
iffy.
concerned if it's a little too inland. Is it too far from the coast or not? So that's where we're just like, well, gosh, each of these places has really strong pros and cons. And we felt like, having enough time in each of these places to get to know it, get to feel the vibe. So much in life is, do you feel like you fit in? And does it feel right? And you have to trust your gut. And I think we'll know after some time in these places, and the people that we meet will convince us if it's the right fit and that we love the pros and can live with the cons and really find out which of those are most important to us. But I'm confident our hearts will know where they're meant to be. Yeah. And if we need more time, then we need more time.
Be it.
And again, we're lucky. We have family to stay with if we need to. And, I'm so grateful in so many ways for that, because it takes so much pressure off versus, maybe other people who don't have that comfort of a family to help the transition process. Yeah. So I think that kind of talks about, where we're going to try living, and we still have to fully answer that question. So stay tuned. We'll be talking about each of these locations in the next months, and each will be its own episode. But I think this brings us to the final stage of the before Italy journey, and that was
physical move
of getting here. And again, let me say that we purged again and again and again, and gave so many donations, sold so many things. Mm-hmm. We've set up at least 2 apartments of our children, fully outfitted with furniture and things. So they benefited from our downsizing and purging. Yeah. And then we had to go through, packing. And oh my gosh, I hate packing. And even for travel, it gives me so much stress to think about how much can I fit in that suitcase for 50 pounds. And this was at such a different magnitude of debating with, do we ship it? Mm-hmm. Do we bring it? And wanting to keep both to a minimum, oh my God, are we having too much to ship? Oh my God, am I having too much to put on the plane? So I was doing a lot of internal battling with myself about this. And I assigned Davide the task of shipping.
Yes.
And said, just figure this out.
So first we had to figure out, what are we going to ship, right? Is it even worth it? Because we kind of want to, we've done it before. We moved from Switzerland to the US. We had a container. Everything was put, whatever we had back then was put in the container, and we shipped it. Your company paid for it. But now that we had to pay on our own, we want to make sure that what we brought was something that we couldn't get here.
We couldn't get, or, for the price. It was really, this is the accountant coming out of me where I'm like, let's do the ROI analysis on this.
Or something that we are attached to.
Yeah, are we attached to it? But then also, okay, we're just going to say it. We love our bed.
Yes.
We have a Sleep Number bed.
Mm-hmm.
We love it. We had to actually go on the Facebook groups and ask people, has anyone else moved a Sleep Number bed? Could you get it to work? But we love this bed, and we invested a lot of money into it.
Yes.
And we knew we would not recoup
not
a fraction.
I looked into it.
Of the cost.
It would be maybe 10% of what we pay. And
so we're okay, then we have to go buy another bed. Then we had this couch that we loved, and great
that
sectional.
We just purchased.
And we had just purchased in the last couple of years. So looked online, how much would that cost us in Italy? And I think we found in general, just to kind of share and answer this question for others, is Italy has kind of 2 ends of the spectrum, we think, in furniture. Maybe, we'll learn differently, but it was really the IKEA end and similar, options as IKEA, where it's very affordable, decent furniture. Mm-hmm. And then you have the other end where it's kind of high end.
Very high end. There's nothing in between.
There's not a lot of options that we know of yet in the middle. Yeah. And so there were a few items of furniture that we thought we would recoup the cost of shipping, plus then all of our other items that had personal attachment. And can I mention bikes and guitars and equipment?
Those are important. And my vinyl.
Oh my gosh, don't get me started. I also have my Christmas decorations.
Yes.
So you had your vinyl, I have my Christmas decorations. Those were must go. but we needed to figure out how we were going to get it here.
Yeah. And we still had like, let's put apart the bikes, my vinyl, and the bed and the couch, right? Let's say we would have sold everything and then bought it here. We still had, about 40 boxes of personal items, right?
30 to 40.
And so the cheapest I found was to send my bag. And they wanted like $200
I think it was closer to 300.
Yeah.
Per bag.
Per bag, yes. So times 40. So anyway, so we decided, okay, let's bring the bed, the couch, blah, 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 and see who's going to help us move that. I was looking for some companies, and first I found some local ones in Minneapolis. Said, because that was the advice I got from people. You go find a local one that does international. And I did. I contacted two, and they said, we cannot give you a quote. We need to come to your place, and then we take a look, and sort of kind of like, the salesperson spiel that they give you so that to kind of attach you. And so I didn't like that. Then I learned about Laser International out of Chicago. That was recommended by a lot of people.
It's on a Facebook page again.
Yeah. Or wasn't it in the Smart Move too?
No, I think there was a Facebook page that, I don't know which one, but a couple of different people. I mean, that's where you're kind of like always keeping your eye out for things as you're scrolling. Yeah. And I would take notes on a couple of different companies. And this one came up again and again. Yeah. And so I kind of threw it over to you.
Anyway, so I talked to Adam there at Laser International, and I said, Adam, look, I'm just looking for a rough estimate to see if that's even worth to bring it. And so he was able to give me a rough estimate, and we kind of like, yeah, it's about what we were thinking. So,
and a half a container, right? Like we had to kind of go through visually and be like, are we talking about like, is this half a container? Is this a full container? And I think it was confusing, at least for me, hearing from you talk to me about the other companies you looked at, or what I saw on Facebook groups was some went based on weight.
Yeah.
And some went based on square footage. Yeah. And to me, square footage was a bit more solid.
Yeah, because you feel it, and
how much a space. Like I know my couch, I know how big it is. I don't know how much things weigh. Like I didn't want this. I think for me the biggest thing is I didn't want surprises.
Exactly.
And I heard some horror stories of they told us it was going to be X, and at the end it was almost double that. And we had to feel confident in who we were working with, that the range and the estimate was where they quoted us, and. So far, so good.
So far, so good.
Stuff's on a boat.
So, yeah, it's on its way here. Hopefully, 30 days? No, more?
Well, it's about 45 days total.
45 days, they saw it, yeah.
But that, went well, very smooth. Then we were having to pack again after we saw the container leave. And how are we going to get everything into suitcases? And
but before we packed our 10 pieces of luggage, we had to figure out, what am I going to put on the boat and what am I going to put in the allotted suitcases that we had, right?
Right.
So, okay, keep going.
That was, yes, frustrating. But I think once the container left, we were stuck with what we had. Mm-hmm. And it's either going to go on the plane, or we're going to donate it, or keep things at my parents' place. And then we had, our 6 pieces of luggage. And I have to say, we have a great luggage scale. All of our bags checked in at between 48 and 52 pounds. So no problems. But I think what I want to kind of share as the story in this process is, I think it was the packing process that finally got me freaking out a little bit. That it was real. Like, we're moving. And it was one thing to be talking about moving for the past 4 years and going through the research, going through the motions, and much different to physically be taking action. And it felt super real. When I saw the truck drive away, I was like, oh my God, like, we're moving. And so I was starting to wonder if the idea of moving was more exciting than actually moving. And I think we had a couple of glasses of wine that night to calm me down. But Davide's all excited. And he's like, no, this is like revving me up. And for me, it was making me nervous. But then, we had to shift into, our saying our goodbyes. Yeah. And getting on the plane, and that final packing and organizing. And then we were checking in on the plane, And it was the night before, afternoon before. And we're like, okay, this is fine. We're going to check in. We're doing this. And then it said, oh, you need a visa. And I'm like, what? What do I mean I need a visa? This is going to be a problem. I had to call Davide over. I'm like, I think we have a problem. And he's like, what? I'm like, well, we purchased tickets, return tickets in January. Mm-hmm. And we did research in buying our tickets too. That was a one-way cheaper or a round trip. And round trip was cheaper.
Yep.
And then we're like, well, should we just pick a date? And arbitrarily pick January.
Well, I kind of had already something planned to come back actually in December because of my work.
Yeah. So we picked this date, not realizing that for me, it's then greater than 90 days.
Yep.
And that was going to trigger a visa requirement from the airline's checklist. Now, we know I don't need a visa. The airlines don't. And we're like, oh my goodness, this is going to be a problem. So we call Delta and get customer service. And I have to say, again, on the phone wasn't super helpful. They sent us to talk to TSA, which had, one, we couldn't get a person on the phone. And then it ended up being even, pointless. But we're like, let's go to the airport.
Yeah.
And we went there, looked around, tried to find somebody to speak to. We actually found somebody in TSA. They agreed, we have nothing to do with this. Don't talk to us. And found a very helpful person at the Delta counter that worked through everything, was able to go into the system and override it and knew our situation. So I point this out as to, one, if you're in the same situation, don't book your ticket more than 90 days.
The round trip one.
Yep.
Yeah.
And make sure that it's within the 90-day window so that it doesn't trigger this system alert.
Yeah.
But secondly, again, in-person help versus anything you can do on the phone or online. So I just kind of backed up our point of when you're actually in a situation with a person and seeing their, face to face and having their help was instrumental. So, I don't know, anything you would add as we're doing our final sending things and getting on the plane?
No, I think after they helped us the next day, we went to the airport and your dad brought us with the 10 pieces of luggage. And we were able to move them to the drop-off, and we just paid the additional luggage fees, which wasn't that bad. I mean, we just added 2 because we were Silver Elite. So we had 2 free each person, and then we just had an additional 1.
It was worth it.
Yeah.
But I think overall, for me, it was relief. I was feeling huge relief. We went and had a drink, and it was finally an end to the analyzing and asking ourselves of, are we going to do this? Because, I've been telling this analogy to a lot of people as they've been talking to us about our move to Italy. And I said, the best thing I can describe it as these last years is it's been making the decision to skydive. And you've made the decision, you go out to the field. And I have to say, I did do this in my 20s. I went skydiving.
I didn't know that until 5-6 years ago.
I don't know why, but you didn't know, but I did. And I looked back on that scenario, making the decision, not so hard. Getting to the field, not hard. Went with friends. Got your equipment on, you went through the instruction, started to get a few butterflies. Then you went into the plane and you're going up and until you could reach 10,000 feet. And it was on the plane that I was the most nervous, that it was, I'm here, I am going to be jumping out of this plane. And it's crazy. Then it was, that's what it felt like these last years, is that we were on a plane deciding whether we're going to jump or not. It was starting to become exhausting, this question of, are we going to jump? Are we going to jump? Are we going to jump? I don't know how many lakes we walked around having this conversation. Are we going to jump? And I finally turned to Davide and I said, either we have to jump or we need to land the plane and move far away from an airport, because this questioning of, are we going to do this or not, was becoming, all consuming. So we just need to move forward. And for me, that is the biggest takeaway in all of this, is that we finally got to the point where we said, we are going to regret if we don't try this. And the questioning will never leave us. So we're going to give it a try. We jumped, and we know
we landed.
And we landed
safely.
And we can always get back on that plane and go the other direction.
Exactly.
So anyway, I think to wrap up the journey here, I just wanted to talk a little bit about that relief, but also the hard part of saying goodbye. And with most people, we were saying, we're going to see you later. It's not a goodbye.
Exactly.
And we've got friends already coming to visit in a few weeks, and we've got family coming in a couple of months. So that made it a little bit easier, but I won't go on and on about this. I feel like I already am, but we're here. So next step in this storyline.
Well, we're getting to know the Italian bureaucracy.
Yes.
And so the reason why we chose to come here to La Mezzia in the beginning to acquire residency and all the documents that we need is because me being Italian, all of our documents, my birth certificate, our marriage certificate is all already here. So if I need something, I'm in their system. And so it will go faster to get stuff done. So this week, I focused on the residency. So I went to the city hall. I announced myself. I'm here. I'm living here now with my parents. My parents have 2 apartments in their house. So we are occupying right now the unit below them. And so the one thing that was surprising was that they needed to see a floor plan to make sure it's big enough for 2 people or 4 people, whatever. As you know, here in Italy, a lot of people are coming to this country. They are trying to get their residency established. And they say, I'm going to live with this friend. And this friend that lives in maybe 1,000 square feet big house or apartment, but 10 people are already living there. So we had to make sure, so they required that. So that was a little hiccup. So we needed to go get that piece of paper and produce that in front of the city hall agent.
What else have we been doing?
Yeah. Then the next thing was to try to get the driver's license for me, which I need to go this afternoon to see what they accomplished. Codice Fiscale for you next. Oh, no, I forgot. We did your residency too, which we thought we had to go to the Questura, to the police station for immigration. And they said, no, you go to the post office, you get the package and you fill it out, as we were told. And so we did that, submitted, and you got your appointment for the immigration next year in April. So you're free to roam until then.
Yes.
Then next, tomorrow, we're going to get your tax ID so you can acquire anything like phone service and...
Well, even to rent a place when we find
or
a property.
to rent a place.
Or buy a property.
Or buy a property, yeah. So, and then after I got my driver's license, we're going to look to get a driver's license for you as well.
So basically all of the administrative type documents and steps that one needs to complete, we're here to get done. And I have to say that because Davide is Italian and speaks fluently Italian, and we have family here, that our process is like 100% simplified compared to many. And I don't know how we would do this if that were not the case. So I think in those situations, you definitely need to hire somebody to assist you or have friends or family of friends that are here to assist, because I've been looking at the forms. I've been watching how this works. And if we didn't have your dad here to help navigate, if you weren't able to read the forms and understand the forms, and
I'm not going to lie, I had to Google a couple words.
But I mean, this made it so much easier. And even having a place to come to directly and unload all of our 10 pieces of luggage. And I mean, our desks are set up. We're recording a podcast. I'm planning trips. Like, we didn't lose but a few days to get situated.
Yeah.
And we're kind of back to our normal lives that we're just physically here in Italy versus in Minnesota. And I mean, others would need to obtain citizenship and a visa and need to rent a prior property even before they could get the visa. And
much harder.
We have a bit of a transition, and it's been infinitely easier and less stressful to have that on our side. So we're here for about another week.
Yeah.
And then we will be moving on up north to Pistoia. And I'm looking forward to learning all about that cute little town in northwest Tuscany. And we will have an episode telling you everything we learn, both from a living there standpoint and a tourism standpoint. So I'm excited about that. So Davide, last thoughts before we wrap this up?
Before what? I don't have any more thoughts. I think we talked a lot. What's missing now is people want some tips from you, Tanya. Tips from Tanya.
Okay, so for those considering a move to Italy, or I should say another foreign country, really, my key advice is...
Marry an Italian?
No. One, know your why and be confident in it and document it. I know we're going to encounter many obstacles and we'll need to be reminded of our why often. So when Davide and I ask each other, why did we do this? I have notes. Yes. And now we have this podcast that we can listen to and talk about our why and be reminded of it. But know your why. 2, do your research and obtain help. Peace of mind is worth every dollar that you could invest in this process. And I think it's one of those important things. You do not want to get anything wrong because many of them are hard to undo or costly to undo if you make a mistake. But, having said that, after doing a lot of research and obtaining help, don't fall into analysis paralysis either. And you're not going to have answers to every single thing. And you can't do everything on the internet. You need to spend time in Italy and try to get information firsthand from people who live here. And whether, maybe that's a lot of extended trips that you're here first, or you just make the leap and know that you're not going to have all the answers and we'll figure it out confidently. But I think that to me is, and be ready for some bureaucracy. I'm looking at Davide and laughing here because he's like, what?
I just need to put this out. I just read yesterday in one of the Facebook groups, somebody asking, can somebody recommend a place to live in Tuscany? I've never been in Italy. And I go yeah.
Yeah. So all jokes aside, you might want to spend some time in a country before you decide to move there.
Exactly.
But that wraps it up from my tips from Tanya. And I think as we conclude this episode, thank you again for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode about our journey to Italy and have been inspired by it or can relate to it in some way and in some aspect of your life to reach for your dreams. Don't put them off. And we're going to be back with another episode in 2 weeks.
From Pistoia?
From Pistoia.
Okay.
But I think we're going to be talking about Calabria.
We will. So
stay tuned.
Until
we'll be
then,
back.
Ciao.
Ciao. We hope you've enjoyed Experience Italy with Friends. If you like the podcast, remember to follow us and leave a review letting us know what you found to be the most helpful. And if you want expert advice or assistance in creating your own immersive and authentic experience in Italy, visit us at www.amicivacations.com.